doesn't know if Iran is developing nuclear weapons, and he hopes not. But he says if they're not developing nuclear weapons, they are crazy.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
We're going to attack anybody we feel like and invade you if we can do it with impunity. So you better have a deterrent.
Nigel Farage, the MP politician who said this about Brexit,
But the worst case scenario, economically, is better than where we are today.
is now saying that he backs the actions of Donald Trump, that he stands behind the military actions of the USA because Iran must never have nuclear weapons. But he doesn't ask why Iran might want one, nor which country is breaking international law on a daily basis. Nor does he try and ask the question why the International Atomic Energy Agency is saying there is no evidence, nor why the Director of National Intelligence for the United States is saying there's no evidence to show they're building a bomb.
Now you might be noticing I don't feel about that war the way we were told we were supposed to feel about that war, the way we were ordered and instructed by the United States government to feel about that war. See, my mind doesn't work that way. I got this real moron thing I do, it's called thinking.
All of which you can see in this video, link at the end. No, instead, as usual, Nigel just panders to his mate Donald Trump because Donald Trump's in power, despite the overwhelming evidence to show that Donald Trump is just a lying f***ing idiot.
We're president, and I say this, I will end that war in one day. It'll take 24 hours. I know Zelensky well. I know Putin well. I would get that ended in a period of
You can break that deal.
100%. It would be easy. That deal would be easy. A lot of it has to do with the money. A lot of it has to do with the military, that we're giving. But I would get that deal done within 24 hours. That war has to be stopped. That war is a disaster. And I'm talking more than money. I'm talking about the human life. It's far greater than anyone thinks.
There's a lot of people being killed.
Why does Nigel keep talking about defending white people and not bombing them, but then suggest that it is okay to bomb brown people? I'm just asking questions.
But we can bomb the shit out of your country, all right? Huh? We can bomb the shit out of your country, all right?
And now for something completely different.
Nigel Farage says we need to back Trump's military action against Iran, no questions asked. But what if the real threat isn't Iran? What if the real threat is the hypocrisy of Donald Trump and the United States? I mean, it's not exactly as if they've lied about war before, have they? Except for Vietnam, the first Gulf War, the second Gulf War, and now apparently this, when Trump is going against his own head of national intelligence and the Institute of Atomic Energy. So before you make your mind up about Nigel Farage and Donald Trump and their actions, here's Noam Chomsky, one of the most respected political thinkers of his generation, and he is alive today, explaining why this entire conversation about nukes is built on a lie. Don't skip this, just listen.
I don't really understand the idea of a country obtaining a nuclear weapon or developing one themselves out of a form of protection or to be on the same, international status as other countries who are considered superpowers or on the same level as a superpower because they themselves have nuclear weapons. But what do you do when a country is openly trying to develop one or obtain one and also openly threatening to wipe out a country and claiming that a country shouldn't exist? I mean, those are two really big issues that we're dealing with, and I didn't really think you addressed that, and I was curious what you had to say.
Well, what do you do about countries that already develop nuclear weapons outside the framework of the Non-Proliferation Treaty and are daily violating resolutions of the Security Council and the International Atomic Energy Agency? That's the much more serious problem.
But that's a different situation because those countries aren't openly threatening to wipe out another country.
Nor is Iran. Just take a look at the statements. The statement is that, in the course of time, Israel should no longer exist. Well, actually, I happen to agree with that, too. In fact, so do a lot of people in Israel, the ones who think there should be a single democratic state. That's not calling for wiping anyone out. In fact, Iran has supported the international consensus on the two-state settlement. Actually, there are two countries that are not only calling for some nation not to exist, but are destroying it, namely the U.S. and Israel. That's their position with regard to the Palestinians. And they're not just saying it. stress, they're not just saying it, they're doing it day by day. That's the meaning of the policies that are going on right before our eyes in Gaza and the West Bank, which we are supporting and paying for. So sure, you shouldn't call for the destruction of another nation, and you shouldn't implement that. Actually, the official position of Israel, backed by the United States, they've slightly modified it, but back about 20 years ago, their official position, the coalition government, Labour, Likud, was that there cannot be, I'm quoting it, an additional Palestinian state between Jordan and Israel. In other words, they declared, and the U.S. supported that there already is a Palestinian state, namely Jordan. I mean, the Palestinians object. They say, no, wait a minute, that's not our state. But who cares about them? We say that's your state, and there can't be an additional one. Well, that goes well beyond calling for the destruction of another country. I mean, in comparison with Saudi Arabia, Iran looks like a civil rights paradise. But but it's awful, no doubt. And there's a way to deal with it, like, for example, moving towards a nuclear weapons-free zone. But among strategic analysts, including Israeli ones, there's no real question about why Iran is moving to nuclear weapons capability, which is not the same as having nuclear weapons. It's just being at a point where you could have them, like most of the advanced industrial world is in that position. Japan, Italy, all sorts of countries. The reason is very simple. Actually, it was described by one of Israel's leading military analysts, very hawkish, Martin von Crefeld, a couple of years ago. After the invasion of Iraq, he wrote an article in which he said he doesn't know if Iran is developing nuclear weapons, and he hopes not, but he says if they're not developing nuclear weapons, they are crazy. That was his word. They're not developing them, they're crazy. The United States has just announced we're going to attack anybody we feel like and invade you if we can do it with impunity. So you better have a deterrent. Well, maybe they're developing a deterrent. No serious analyst thinks that they could use nuclear weapons. So chances they're using it are, probably at the level of an asteroid hitting the Earth or something like that. But it's a serious problem. In fact, if you look at the Israeli literature, they're pretty straight about it. They say that the real threat of an Iranian nuclear weapon is not against Israel, but it's against Zionism. That is, what they're afraid of is that if the region becomes too dangerous, people in Israel are just going to leave. People who have the capacity to, more educated, wealthier, and so on, because they won't want to live in a region with that threat. And in fact, emigration is a pretty serious problem. Emigration of the educated and the trained, educated sectors. So they don't want to face that threat. But I don't think any serious strategic analyst, at least I've never seen one, who thinks that there's the threat that Iran might use a nuclear weapon. I mean, it would total suicide.
That was Noam Chomsky, calm, clear, factual. Now contrast that with Nigel Farage, a man who cheers on bombs from behind a podium, parrots US war slogans, ignores the international law he claims to defend, whilst also defending a guy charged with sexual assault and attempting a coup. This isn't about defending peace, it's about defending empire. Iran never dropped nukes on anyone, the US did twice. Iran signed the nuclear deal, which was to de-escalate nuclear arms production. Trump tore it up. Iran supports a one-state or two-state solution, one state being that everything is unified and democratically elected. Israel is erasing one. So here's a series of questions you should always ask yourself. When someone calls for war, ask them who's making a profit. When someone backs bombs, ask them who's dying. And when someone like Farage waves a flag and screams terrorist, just remember, real terrorists, sometimes they wear suits. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed today's video, please hit that like and subscribe button. The channel really could do with your help. And for those of you who are helping the channel, I want to say a big thank you to all of my Patreon and YouTube subscribers. You keep this channel going and growing. If you'd like to support the channel, you can hit the link in the description, or you could even buy me a coffee. Once again, thanks for listening. Bye for now.